There were conversations about ways companies could change. We're being joined by Sable Lomax from Fearless Futures, an organization that supports organizations to address inequality. Sable, are you there? Now, Sable, this for me is very personal.
Okay.
In my workplace, they call me talk the thing, Shani. I talk the very truth to anybody straight away. Now, last year, I was having conversations with some of my white colleagues, in particular, like the producers, and how the last year impacted on them and how to navigate having difficult conversations about race. Like, there was some producers that came to me with ideas about radio programs to do just off the back of everything that happened. And I was like, well, hang on a second. I've been here for like a minute, and I've talked about doing programs like this for quite a while, and things that happen in the black community, et cetera, and some of the responses that I got back, it made me, I go from 0 to 100 real quick, you know what I mean, as I get a little bit older, and it kind of made a lot of them kind of step back and be like, yo, well, maybe I don't think I'm the person to be doing this show then. And I'm like, I hear what you're saying, but what you have to understand is that I can't step back from my blackness when I leave this building. I have to deal with that uncomfortability of being a black man, technically in a white man's world. So when you're in an environment like this, I don't feel that you should step back from saying, oh, I don't think I'm the right person to be doing this job because we're going to be talking about black issues, and surely all of a sudden is going to talk about things like, how do you deal with situations and conversations like that in the office environment?
I wish that your experience was a singular experience, but as we know, that's just not the case. That's not the reality. So to that, I think it's important when folks are in a position or feeling ready, whatever that catalyzing moment might have been, to have these conversations is to really reckon with the fact that this is not a singular black box moment. In fact, like since the murdering of George Floyd in the United States alone, 229 black people have been murdered by police. So when we're ready, whoever these people are in these moments, in this context, I would say white folks or non-white folks, to have these conversations, those who are in a position of privilege and power, to really sit with the fact that prioritizing your discomfort with these conversations is not what's important. That's not important over understanding the mechanics of systemic racism, the way it operates and how it manifests at the interpersonal and the structural level, particularly at work. And just so you all know, when I say structural, we mean laws, policies, and institutions. So yes, these conversations are uncomfortable, but they are going to be uncomfortable if we're going to get to the end of the conversations, because it's going to take more than one to get us into a space where we can even begin to unpick and unpack what anti-racism actually looks like, particularly in a workplace context.
Is it wrong of me to put it to the forefront like that? Should I be more cool and nice about it? Is it wrong of me to react in the manner that I reacted? Because I ain't gonna tell no lie, Sable, it really annoyed me. Like, and because the emotions and everything was so raw at the time, I think that came across, and then when I kind of cooled down, it was like, all right, Shawnee, all right, chill a little bit. But is it wrong of me to bring it to the forefront like that and to tell them that, listen, this is not your time to tap out, where some people may even think that, you know what, nah, they're not meant to be doing black programming. I actually believe that it is right for them to do black programming because it kind of opens up a bigger conversation of understanding.
It is not wrong to feel what you feel in any way, shape, or form. When I think about the lived experience of Black folks, of women, of Black women, of disabled folks, of disabled Black folks, right? When I think about that lived experience and all the moments in which your safety, be it mental, emotional, psychological, etc., has been compromised, the last thing that I will communicate to someone is that you should not feel what you feel. To go through life and navigating instances when you don't know when it's going to arise in that moment and not feel that you had dignity, freedom, or even belonging, or even the possibility of safety in those moments, it is absolutely realistic to feel what you feel. And the reality is, when we think about systemic racism and the interconnectedness of all of these racisms, it's going to take white folks willing to do the work. It's going to take non-disabled folks willing to do the work. If Black folks, if Muslim folks, if Black Muslim folks, if Black Jewish folks were able to do the work, I'd argue we would have done it already, considering the generations of folks who have been organizing at grassroots level and beyond historically. So no, feel what you feel and reckon with the reality that they're going to have to do the work too. And in many contexts, they have been willing to do the work, but I think that it's, just sitting with how much work has to be done.
I'm not waiting for moments like this to jump on the trend of Wagwan to say, oh, let's talk about what's going on in the Black community for a moment. It should be a conversation all the time, especially on a network like One Extra. Anyway,
agreed.
100%. What can organizations do if they're serious about making a change?
That is such a loaded question. Let's all put together a syllabi and address all the points. I think one thing when we're having these conversations about race is to expand our siloed thinking. So to that I say, if conversations about race don't include explorations of sexism and religion and the particularistic ways in which, layered identities create a compounded experience, are you really having conversations about race in the first place? My role at Fearless Futures is global. So when I think about you all in UK context, if countries don't want to sit with the reality that racism happens everywhere and systemic racism is not unique to the US, what will our solutions look like that we put in place, whether they be formal or informal, So I think it's just really sitting with that. These are global systems where the roots are strong. They are backed by structures. They are interconnected. So if we're going to move into a space where we're going to have these conversations about race, we can't position it where racism in the US is worse than racism in the UK, because that is absolutely incorrect.
Sable, thank you very much for joining us.
Yo, if you could see us in the studio right now, my arms are up. Kelechi was nodding like, yeah.
Offering a basket ready. I said, Sable, take all of the things. Take it.
Let me throw something in the basket.
You took me to church.
I just think it was such an important point. And in terms of workplace, I think it's really important that employers look at the message, not the delivery. Stop looking at the emotion behind it and targeting people because of the way they deliver things, like you were saying, Shawnee. Listen to what someone's saying and why they feel the way that they feel. And also that stepping back, sometimes step aside. I know someone who would be better for this, because that stepping back is, I have no responsibility to this, I'm not gonna do this. Stepping aside is saying, yo, I know a Black producer that would be bad at this. Let me go and contact that person. It'll be fantastic.
If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe, and click the bell icon to keep up to date. For more great audio and video from the BBC, listen on Sounds, watch on iPlayer.